What's up guys, welcome back to another What If, and today we will be redoing my What If Ash Was Born in Sinnoh series. So the reason I'm redoing this series, even though I only have 2 parts on the other one, is because the other 2 videos actually follow really close to the anime, so I just wasn't happy with that. So here's one that will actually gradually change. I am a lot happier with this new version that I've written rather than the old one, and you'll see why over the next 2 parts. But before we get to the video, I want to show you an analytic that shows only 79% of you are subscribed. So if you can do me a favor and hit that subscribe button, I will appreciate it, and you'll never miss another video. Our story begins in the small town of Twinleaf, located in the southwestern part of the Sinnoh region. The day before Ash, Barry, and Dawn become trainers, they are talking about what starters they're gonna get. Both Ash and Barry start to argue as they both want Turtwig, but before they can get on a full-on fight, Dawn tries to calm them down. Ash, being cocky and stubborn, challenges Barry to a race to see who can get there first, and the winner is Turtwig. Barry, much like Ash, is very cocky and stubborn, so he accepts Ash's challenge. Dawn is a little disappointed as she wanted all of them to go together, but hopefully she'll meet them there. Ash and Barry ask what starter she wants, and she tells them that she's not sure yet. Maybe she'll be able to decide when she gets to meet them in person. But that's when Kenny joins the group, teasing Dawn with a DD nickname. Barry then asks what's up with the nickname. They've known each other pretty much their whole lives, and he's never bothered to ask. Dawn then threatens Kenny to stay quiet, so instead he reveals what starter he wants to get, and that's Piplup. After a few more minutes of walking, they all eventually end up splitting off and going to their respective houses. Unfortunately for Ash, when he went to bed, he forgot to set his alarm. So the next morning, Ash is wakened by Dawn yelling at him to wake up. He asks her why she's waking him up so early, and she coldly responds that it's almost noon. Ash then starts to freak out, and as he's throwing on his clothes, he questions why did she come here and not go straight to Professor Rowan's lab. Dawn says that she's known Ash and Barry for a long time now, so she wanted to make sure that they weren't late. And unfortunately for him, she already stopped by Barry's place, who had already left. And she didn't even bother checking in on Kenny because of what happened yesterday. After changing, they go downstairs, get a piece of toast from Dahlia, get on their bikes, and haul ass to Sandgem Town. On their way there, they see trucks with giant G's on them moving past the duo, but they choose to ignore it as it really isn't their problem. When they arrive at Sandgem Town, they have no idea where the lab is. Ash can feel something. Ash doesn't think much of this, and they continue to look for the lab. So they spend about 30 minutes just lost until someone gives them directions to the lab. When they get there, they ask Professor Rowan for their starter Pokemon. Rowan informs them that unfortunately for one of them, he's only got 1 starter left, as 2 others came by not too long ago and took the rest. Both of them quickly figure out that the other 2 trainers must have been Barry and Kenny. Ash questions what Pokemon is left then, and Rowan says that it's Chimchar, meaning that only one of them can have a starter. Ash and Dawn both want the starter since there's no other ones, but they can't decide who gets to keep it. One of Rowan's assistants says that they can easily solve this by just doing rock, paper, scissors. They both agree to it, and although it ends up being a close game, Dawn ends up winning the game. As a reward, Dawn gets handed her brand new Chimchar, a Pokédex, and some Pokeballs. The professor does warn her that Chimchar does seem to be a handful, as it often tries to steal other Pokemon's food. Dawn says that there's no need to worry as she's read up a bit on how to raise a Pokemon. Ash, feeling desperate to get a starter, asks if this really means there's no Pokemon left for him, and Rowan says that there might be one more Pokemon that he can take. While his assistant fetches the Mon, Rowan tells Ash that he specializes in Pokemon evolution. Not too long ago, he was given a freshly hatched Pokemon that isn't too fond of being stuck in a lab and studied. Perhaps he could take it and study it in the field. Although Ash isn't too fond of studying, he does want to become a Pokemon master. And if this means that this is the only way to get a starter, he'll do it. The professor says that this is something that he would have entrusted to his younger assistant. However, he's currently on a more important mission right now. Mr. Blitz then brings back a Riolu that's flailing around in his arms. Rowan tells Ash that if he's willing to study it, he can take it as a starter. As they're talking, Riolu manages to escape out of Berlitz's arms and starts running around the lab using agility, making a mess, before running into the forest. Ash, not wanting to lose his partner, quickly runs after it, and Dawn also goes after them, but quickly loses track of them. Riolu tries losing Ash by using Vacuum Wave, and he does manage to actually hit Ash, and he goes flying back, hitting what he thinks is a boulder. Unfortunately for them, the ground starts to shake, and that boulder turns out to be a part of an onyx. It's pissed that they woke it up, and Ash tries to apologize, however Onyx is having none of it and tries to attack him. Riolu tries to fight back, however her vacuum waves aren't exactly doing much damage. So Ash eventually decides to just pick up Riolu and make a run for it. Ash does end up getting hit by Onyx's tail twice, but he just gets up and keeps running. During this, Riolu can sense aura coming from Ash, pretty much telling it that as long as Riolu is safe, that's all that matters. Ash finds a cave with rock too hard for Onyx to break. Ash uses this time to think of a plan of how to get out of here, because he doesn't know how long until Onyx breaks through. Riolu is still a little distant from Ash, but slowly starts to warm up to him, especially after seeing his injuries. Ash tells Riolu not to worry, as he'll make sure that she gets out of this, as the Onyx keeps bashing away at the cave all night. Earlier that same day, Dawn and Chimchar go out looking for Ash and Riolu when they get lost in the forest. As Dawn is shouting out for Ash, a strand of web shoots from above, attaching and pulling away Dawn's beanie. Dawn quickly noticed this, and when she looks up, a spinnerack is playing with her beanie. She demands for it to give it back, however, it sorta laughs at her. Dawn starts to get impatient and orders Chimchar to attack, but he just gives her a confused look. Dawn then remembers that she has to order a specific attack, so she pulls out her Pokédex that lists all of his moves. Dawn orders Chimchar to use Scratch, however he misses, causing Spinnerack to hit Chimchar with a pin missile. He manages to get back up and try again. This time he actually does hit the Spinnerack, but it retaliates with a poison jab. Chimchar remains on the floor as he's been poisoned, and Dawn quickly realizes this. So she picks him up, deciding that Chimchar's life is worth more than her hat. However, Chimchar struggles and jumps out of her arms. He wants to keep fighting, and whether it's for Dawn or his own pride is unclear. What is clear is the fire in Chimchar's eyes to continue fighting, and Dawn can see this. She allows Chimchar to keep battling as long as they do it quickly. To Dawn and Chimchar's dismay, this battle actually lasts quite a bit. As Chimchar's health gets low, his Blaze ability gets activated, and with a newly learned Fire Punch, Spinnerack has had enough. It drops Dawn's hat and runs up a tree afraid. With the battle pretty much over, Chimchar goes over to get Dawn's hat. He puts it on and starts running over to Dawn. However, Chimchar falls to the ground as the poison is finally taking its toll on him. Dawn picks him up and thanks him for being so strong, but they gotta go heal him up. They can go look for Ash after the poison is gone. Just then, 2 Ariadoses with a Spinnerack on its back drop down in front of her, causing both trainer and Pokemon to scream out in surprise. Chimchar points upward and Dawn sees a huge web containing a ton of Ariadoses. Dawn attempts to run away, however the Ariadoses fire off a ton of string shots which barred off all the exits. With Chimchar unable to even battle, she tries her best to dodge poison stings and sludge bombs. The more tired she gets, the less hopeful the situation seems. Eventually she's knocked on her ass, and knowing that this is the end, she uses her body to cover Chimchar. As Dawn braces herself, she hears what sounds like a lady's voice. Dawn then hears the Ariadoses yelling out in pain, and when she looks up, all the Ariadoses are running away from a stunk tank and a woman with magenta hair. She very loudly complained about her disappointment that she was only able to catch 2 of them, before turning her attention to Dawn, who thanks her for saving their lives. However, Jupiter states that she'd better hand over all her Pokemon and money, or else her partner here will finish off the job that the Arios didn't. Dawn explains that she really doesn't have any money and her only Pokemon is currently poisoned. Jupiter says to hand him over as it's better than nothing. Dawn pleads for her not to do this, however the lady orders her Skuntank to use Hyper Beam. As the Skuntank begins charging it up, Juniper gets into an argument with someone over her earpiece. She yells out in frustration as she recalls Skuntank, telling the girl that she got off lucky. As Jupiter walks away, she mumbles to herself that this girl looked familiar. As soon as Jupiter is out of sight, Dawn picks up Chimchar and runs off to the lab. As she is running through the forest, she stumbles upon Lake Verity, or she takes a moment to catch her breath, and she sees ripples in the lake as a mysterious figure appears for a moment before vanishing. Dawn thinks about what she just saw, but then remembers her Pokemon needs help, so she books it. Anyways, Ash and Railu try to spend the night trying to get some sleep to no avail. While waiting for Onix to get tired and leave, Ash is trying to figure out how to get out of this, while Riolu tries to sleep. Riolu can somewhat sense that Ash is worried and scared, so she reluctantly lays down next to him. In the morning, Onix finally starts to crack the rock, and Ash hugs Riolu as Onix should be getting in at any minute. However, a blue light appears in the cave, and in front of Ash and Riolu, a blue cat with a red gem and two tails appears in front of them. The encounter is brief, but after it disappears, the Pokemon leaves some sort of effect on both of them. They suddenly feel like they could take on anything, so they prepare for Onix to break in. Once it does, Riolu uses Vacuum Wave to temporarily blind the Onix and allow them to run out of the cave. As they battle, Ash and Riolu's aura seems to sync up for a bit, and they just barely manage to defeat the Onix. Without any Pokeballs, he can't catch it, so Ash apologizes for waking it up, and Riolu knocks down a few berries for the Onix to eat before they leave. They do get lost on the way back to Professor Rowan's lab, but they eventually make it back. As they get treated for their injuries, Dawn is scolding Ash for running off like that, because he worried everybody. Ash just smiled, saying that he couldn't let his first Pokemon run away like that. Dawn just continues to scold him until Professor Rowan steps in, calming her down. Rowan informs Ash that if he wants to wait, he can get him a proper starter soon. Ash is intrigued by the offer of a proper starter, but declines as he would like to continue his journey with Riolu. After this, Ash is handed his own Pokedex and Pokeballs. Riolu climbs on top of Ash's shoulders, and it reminds him of that Pokemon they met. After a brief description of what the Pokemon looked like, Dawn says that while she was looking for Ash, she and Chimchar went to Lake Verity and saw something similar. Professor Rowan says that the Pokemon they might have seen are 2 out of the 3 Lake Guardians. He then gives the kids a brief history of the Lake Guardians, though he questions why Azoth would be so far away from Lake Valar. The kids exclaim that they want to meet the Lake Guardians one more time, and with their new Pokemon in hand, Ash and Dawn run out thanking Professor Rowan as they start their journey. On Route 202, Ash and Dawn run into a Baneri that Dawn and Ash get into an argument about who should capture it. It's ultimately decided that Dawn will capture it, however she fails to do so. They continue to walk for a bit before setting up to eat some lunch. While they're eating, Chimchar ends up finishing his food and tries to take some from Riolu. Clearly she isn't happy about this and they're about to get into a fight when a second wild Baneri appears minding its own business. This time around, because Dawn failed the first time, it's Ash's turn, and using Vacuum Wave twice, he captures it. After Ash strokes his ego a bit, Riolu decides to share her food with both Chimchar and Baneri. Our duo continue to walk and run into Nando, and Dawn wanting to show off her strength, she challenges him to a battle. Despite being at a type advantage, Dawn loses this fight, and then Ash challenges him next. Much like Dawn before him, he ends up losing, but this does help Nando decide he'll compete for both badges and ribbons. Their next stop is at the nearest Pokemon Center, where Ash registers for the league. The next morning, as the two walk out of a nearby convenience store with food in hand, Ash tells Dawn not to worry about the contest, she'll do fine, especially with all that extra training she's been doing. Dawn replies that Ash won't understand, as she's gotta live up to her mother's reputation of being a great Pokemon coordinator. But before she can continue that thought, Riolu points out that a Croagunk has been falling behind them. Ash gives it an apple, thinking that all it really wants is food, but it keeps following them. After realizing it's a wild Pokemon, Ash decides to catch it as Dawn really doesn't want it. Ash has Baneri battle it, and even though Baneri puts up a good fight, it ultimately takes out Baneri with a powerful Brick Break. Ash then swaps out to Riolu, who has quite the battle as Riolu is faster than Croagunk. They end up knocking each other out when Riolu uses Copycat and Croagunk uses Poison Jab. Ash then throws a Pokeball, and after shaking a bit, Croagunk is caught, making it his second capture so far. Shortly after this, Ash is helping Dawn and Chimchar with their contest moves, when they run into a third wild Baneri. While Chimchar can handle the Baneri, ends up using its ability Runaway to run away. And Ash does try his best to console her on her second failed attempt. A short while later, Dawn starts to practice again when a wild Badoo approaches them. The Twin Leaf natives are a bit confused on why it approached them, but then Badoo starts to use Leaf Storm and Poison Powder to put on a little show. And after realizing that Badoo is trying to mimic what she and Chimchar are trying to do, she asks Badoo if it would like to join her team and take part in contest. As Badoo happily jumps around, Dawn goes ahead and catches it. With these new Pokemon in hand, they finally arrive at Jubilife City. While in Jubilife, Ash and Dawn get their real authentic Pokewatches. All they really do is just hang out in Jubilife and wait for the contest to begin. One of the things they do is help a kid find a Shinx, which pretty much takes all day. The following day, they find an area in which they can practice some of Dawn's contest moves. During the practice match, Riolu stops listening to Ash and starts doing its own thing. When Ash and Dawn don't get what she's getting at, Riolu gets a little pouty and decides to open Dawn's backpack and pull out a contest poster. Dawn then realizes that Riolu might want to take part in a contest, and if that's the case, Ash should join. Ash isn't really excited about this, but he decides to take part if Riolu wants to. After all, he's helped Dawn practice and sees the kind of moves she's done. It shouldn't be that hard. The two then continue their training, and after they're done, Dawn realizes that they have to go register. So they rush over there to get signed up. Turns out they're the last people who get to sign up. Ash then learns about ball capsules and ribbons. He would have some idea of what they are, but not an exact idea, as Dawn would have probably mentioned it beforehand. It was just something that Ash never really cared about until now. From here, we can skip straight to the contest, where in the changing room, Ash and Dawn run into a coordinator named Zoe, and their old pal Barry. Both Ash and Dawn are super confused on why Barry is here, and where he's been this entire time. Barry says that after he beat Ash to getting Turtwig, he made his way here. He knew Dawn and Ash would eventually get here, so he's just been waiting for them. Ash just gets mad that Barry is rubbing the fact that he got Turtwig in his face. Meanwhile, Dawn is asking why he's competing. Barry simply replies that Dawn and her mom were always talking about this sort of stuff, so he thought he'd give it a try. Plus, he got bored of waiting for them, so he thought that prepping for this thing would help him pass the time. Barry then questions if Ash has signed up for the league, and if he knows which gym he's hitting up first. Ash says he has signed up, and no, he has no idea which gym to go to first. Barry says that he should go with him to Orkburg, so when he wins his first badge, Barry can rub it in his face. Ash says he will go with him and beat the gym first, so he can rub it in Barry's face. With that conversation over, Ash basically demands Barry for a battle after all this is said and done, and of course Barry agrees. Barry then questions which starter he got since Turtwig was off the table. Ash then tells him how Chimchar was the only one left, and Dawn ended up getting him, and he goes on to explain how he met Riolu and how he got him. Anyways, we can move on to the performance stage of the contest, which plays out with all three of them passing with flying colors. In the first round of the battle stage, the trio all managed to just barely win their first matches. In the second round, Dawn beats Barry, and Zoe takes down Ash for the same reason. Both Ash and Barry were more focused on the battling part than the appealing part, meaning Dawn and Zoe were able to chip away away at their points with making their attacks look nice. This means Dawn and Zoe are facing off against each other in the finals. Despite Dawn doing her best, she ends up losing due to a timeout. With the contest over and done with, Ash and Barry go to comfort Dawn on her first loss at a contest. While they're not all that great at it, she does calm down, specifically when she talks with their mom. After the whole contest is over, Ash and Barry find a place to have their battle, and kick it off with Baneri vs Starly. Thanks to Baneri knowing Thunder Punch and its ability to jump really high using its ears, it doesn't take long for Starly to fall. Barry's second Pokemon is his Shinx, and their battle consists mostly of bites and double kicks. However, no amount of kicks can overpower Shinx's Thunder Shock, tying up the fight again. So for Ash's second Mon, he sends in Krogunk, who swiftly takes out the Shinx with 2 poison jabs. Unfortunately for Krogunk, when he hits Shinx, it lets out a final Thunder Shock that paralyzes the poor frog. Barry's final Mon is Turtwig, who despite the type advantage is able to win, mainly thanks to the fact that Krogunk is paralyzed. This leaves Ash's final Mon, Riolu, who battles as hard as she can against the Turtwig. Riolu can easily counter any long-range attacks like Razor Leaf, but doesn't do so well against short-ranged attacks. Like she can use agility to get out of there or counter it with either Vacuum Wave or Copycat. But when it comes to attacks like Tackle or Bite, she either has to move out of the way or counter it with Copycat. This ends in a double knockout with Riolu copying Tackle and them clashing head on. Before the boys can get into another heated argument about who actually won, Dawn reminds them that they gotta go heal their Pokemon. After their Pokemon are all healed up, the trio head over to Route 203. However, on their way, they notice a man walking around acting kinda shady. They walk up to him asking why he's being all shady, and he starts to freak out asking how do they figure out that he was a member of the International Police. So yeah, they encounter Looker, who tells them all about the International Police and a gang of shady criminals who he's looking for here in the Sinnoh region. He tells them if he sees these criminals to let him know. Looker then disappears, but he has left no way of contacting him, so the gang just ignore it and head down Route 203. Meanwhile, in Celestic Town, Rowan's assistant is overlooking an archaeological dig site. He is complaining to a lady that he is bored as there's nothing to do, but the lady states that if her granddaughter wasn't so busy doing champion stuff, she'd be here instead. Lucas then comes up with a great Pokemon pun and sits to write it down. As he is writing it down, a black car appears. Carolina smiles as she says out loud that they have a visitor with a big mouth and blue hair. The man laughs this off, asking if that's really how she talks to her friends and biggest investor. Carolina then introduces Lucas to the man who made most of the buildings and libraries throughout Sinnoh. And he is a rich businessman who funded this project. His name is Cyrus. She then introduces Cyrus to Lucas as Professor Rowan's assistant and winner of the Lily of the Valley conference. Carolina then asks what he's doing here as she wasn't expecting him to show up so soon. He responds that he wanted to see if they've made any progress, and Carolina says no, but they feel like they're getting close. Cyrus is a bit disappointed, however he states he'll be sticking around for a few weeks anyways as he's got another secret project around here. And that's where we're gonna be leaving it off for today. So I hope you guys enjoyed this new rewritten version of What If Ash Was Born in Sinnoh. I hope you guys enjoyed this version a lot more than the other one, because I certainly did. So hopefully if everything goes according to plan, I can bring you guys this series bi-weekly, meaning every other week. At least that's what I'm hoping for, so if it doesn't turn out that way, just hang on and give me a little patience. But yeah, with all that out of the way, I just want to say that recently I've beaten Digimon Survive, and if any of you guys like visual novels with real-time combat, turn-based combat, I'd recommend you guys check it out. That game kind of reignited my passion for Digimon. It's a good franchise. Anyways, remember to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.